AI Limit was first revealed back in 2019 as part of PlayStation's China Hero project, an initiative where PlayStation helps fund and publish Asian-developed video games. A ton of games have spawned through the China Hero project, namely Fist, Forged in Shadow Torch, and the upcoming Lost Solar Side. This is another one that's been on my radar, and I covered it here on the channel about 2 months ago. Recently, the developers and PlayStation reached out to me to see if I wanted to play a demo of this, to get a feel for the game, to see what this is about. I was able to play one of the very first portions of the game known as Sewer Town, which takes about 45 minutes to get through, though I put about 5 hours into this demo through multiple playthroughs. Now what you should know about this game is it is a Souls-like. It's an anime Souls-like, so in very similar fashion to that of something like Code Vein. That's probably the first thing that comes to mind when you see this. So if you're a fan of Code Vein, then this will definitely be up your alley. We've got that anime aesthetic going on with the visuals of the game, but also, when looking at the gameplay, while there are reminiscent things here from Code Vein, I would say there's also a lot here from Bloodborne as well. I kind of look at AI Limit as maybe a fusion of the two put together. I should begin by saying that this is a really solid feeling Souls-like. In a day and age where we are absolutely drowning in Souls-like-esque video games, there's really only a few that come to mind that can capture the same feeling and almost quality that From Software, the pioneers of the genre, have pushed out. Games like Neo, Lies of P, or Code Vein have done a fantastic job of paving their own way within the genre, standing out in the sea of Souls-likes. And I believe that from what I've experienced so far, AI Limit is definitely another one of them. You've got your typical light attacks on R1 and your heavy attacks here on R2. Just like many other Souls-likes, you're able to charge up your heavy attacks by holding down R2 for a more powerful attack. Dash attacks are also here along with falling attacks. And speaking about the dodge system, it is very close to that of Bloodborne's, probably the closest I've experienced in another Souls-like. Bloodborne is very different compared to FromSoft's previous work, Dark Souls, in the ways that the defensive mechanic is no longer blocking with a bit of dodging, but primarily dodging. Bloodborne is incredibly dodge dependent. This meant that FromSoft put their entire focus into the dodge system of Bloodborne, and as a result, we still to this day have the best dodge system present in a Souls-like. So AI Limit takes note of this. There is no guarding in the game, or at least from what I've experienced here in the demo. And the feeling of AI Limit's dodge step and dodge roll are incredibly close to that of Bloodborne. Dodging to the side of enemy attacks to get out behind them for an opening, or dodging into an attack to make use of the few seconds of iframes that the character gets. We've even got a very reminiscent looking running jump. There's no jumping here, it's a classic Souls-like experience, so you dash and then simply click down the analog stick, the same as you would in Bloodborne, in order to get a small jump. There's multiple weapons throughout AI Limit. I was able to try 4 of the categories: longswords, quick blades, greatsword, and katana. For my first playthrough, I ended up going with quick blades, fast attacking dagger-like weapons, with also using the Red Dare, a katana-like weapon that I got halfway through the demo. You're able to equip 2 weapons and switch between them by pressing triangle. What's really cool here is you can even combo in weapon switching. By switching weapons partway through a combo, your next follow-up attack will be with that other weapon, and you can consistently keep doing this. What I like about this system is it encourages experimentation between what 2 weapons you should be equipped with that work best together. Different weapons have different special attacks. These can be used by holding down L1 and pressing R1. These are quite similar to Elden Ring's Arts of War. The primary resource to pull off special attacks in the game is known as sync rate. This represents how much mud energy your character currently has. Weapon abilities will cost a different amount of percentage from your sync rate. You'll gain sync rate as you perform basic attacks towards enemies. However, you can also lose sync rate if you're damaged by enemies. Now the catch here with the resource system is it also determines the amount of damage that you can perform with basic attacks. You'll notice that there are 3 different colored lines underneath the sync bars. This shows whereabouts your energy levels are at. It's divided into 3 categories: low, medium, and high. It's quite a unique mechanic because as as you use the special abilities in the game, your basic attacks are going to be weakened. The sync rate though does fill up fairly quickly when performing basic attacks, so the game encourages you to be aggressive in your playstyle. Similar to how Bloodborne encourages the player to be aggressive after taking a hit in order to get health back. The sync rate system does remind me a little bit of Code Vein's Ichor system, with how you're able to restore your resource by attacking enemies, but this is quite unique with how it also affects your basic attacks. The other special attacks here in the game are known as spells. Now there's going to be a wide range of these, but the only one I was able to use here in the demo was the railgun that I acquired from defeating this robot mini-boss. These two also require the use of sync in order to pull off. The railgun here costs 25. And just like basic attacks, the higher that your sync rate is, the more damage that you'll do with spells. Now I mentioned that the primary defensive mechanic in the game is dodging, but we've also got a way to be able to counter enemies with an ability known as Counter Field. This is an ability that is separate to the spell system, and it looks like, judging from the menu, that there are multiple slots for abilities like this. This makes me think that there may potentially be a block ability later on in the game. Now, it's going to take some time to get used to using Counter Field because there's a bit of a perfect window of opportunity that will take a little while to get used to. If you time it perfectly and the end of the counter field animation lines up with the moment the enemy attacks you, you'll end up stunning the enemy and you can perform a high damaging fatal attack. Now counter field will also require sync in order to pull off, 10% of which. However, if you are successful with countering the enemy, you'll get that sync back. So it's most definitely high risk, high reward, because this thing is quite hard to pull off. You really have to study the enemy patterns to know exactly when the right moment is to use counterfield. This thing can also be used against almost all of the attacks in the game. Obviously grabs are out of the question. However, I do wish that there was an indicator that would let you know, okay, this attack right here from the enemy definitely cannot be countered. Without any indicators, it kind of plays into the idea that players should be studying enemy patterns like you normally would in most Souls-like games. And yes, counterfield can even be used against ranged attacks. This thing though is super satisfying to pull off, one of the better feeling counter or parry systems that I've experienced in a Souls-like. Now character progression works like any other Souls game. When you defeat an enemy, you'll get a currency known as crystals. What's interesting about the XP system is the amount of crystals that you'll receive from enemies and how many crystals you'll lose upon death is determined by a necklace item known as the nucleus. So there'll be multiple different nucleuses in the game, but the one that I had here in the demo gave me a 75% retention rate and a 75% absorption rate with an energy absorption rate of medium. Retention rate determines the percentage of crystals I'll keep upon death. So when you die in this game, there's no way to receive the XP that you lost. Like in Dark Souls, if you die, you can go back to the point of where you died and collect your souls. Rather here, in AI Limit, I'll lose 25% of the crystals I'm currently holding. The absorption rate means that I will be able to absorb 75% of the total XP potential from a defeated enemy. So if I were to come back to an area with a better nucleus, say with a 100% absorption rate, I'll be gaining more XP from defeated enemies. And energy absorption means how fast the sync rate gauge will increase as I defeat enemies. The bonfires of this game are known as branches. Upon repairing a branch, you can rest, level up your character, and teleport to other branches. The branches play into the lore of AI Limit. There's something to do with the branches being able to infinitely reconstruct physical forms. So hence why you die, you respawn next to a branch. They're able to reconstruct physical forms out of the mud. There is also an importance behind mud. It's the energy that you use in order to pull off special attacks here. It would also seem as if the enemies, these demon-looking creatures, are creatures that are born from this mud too. AI Limit takes place in a world where humans have basically been eradicated. There is only one location on the planet where human life still remains, and that's Heaven's Wall, which I believe our character is trying to get to in order to figure out maybe what's going on. I believe there is something to do with repairing all the branches in order to save humankind or eradicate the threat that's currently present. I don't think that our character is human, but that's yet to be confirmed. Something interesting that I noticed is The blood that comes out of the character when they're struck is mud. It's the exact same that happens to when you strike enemies as well. So it would seem that we are one and the same as the enemies here in the game. This would make sense because we too are clearly born from the mud, how we can revive from the tree branches, seeing the player character arise from the mud beneath. And the red hand that is known as a frame that the player character has used to activate spells, the design of that is quite similar to some of the enemy designs. The game is called AI Limit, and we know that there's also robots in this universe. Looking at the design of the character, especially on the chest here, it looks like there are mechanical pieces, especially the bolts there just below the shoulders. So I wonder if our character is an android that has been infused with the mud. So at the branch we can level up. The attributes in this game are life, strength, technique, spirit, and vitality. Some pretty standard stats for a Souls-like game. Life determines how much health you've got. Strength and technique are your damage stats. Some weapons in the game even have a strength or technique requirement. This doesn't mean that you won't be able to use the weapon though if you don't have the requirement. It just means that you won't be using the weapon to its full potential. Spirit will determine how much damage you do with spells, and some spells also have a certain spirit requirement. And vitality will determine how quick the sync rate increases as you damage enemies. I also appreciate how you can check your next level requirement of crystals at any time by pressing start. There's no need to actually go back to the branch to see how many crystals you need to get to the next level. You can upgrade your weapons at branches by finding materials. I was able to find a total of 3 that I needed in order to upgrade the greatsword. Your primary healing in this is known as Life Dew. I started the demo off with 3 charges. This is the whole flask system where when you rest, these will be refilled. You've also got a bunch of quick select slots which you can chuck various items into, like throwables. There's also a heal over time item that you can chuck into this known as a mud ball, and even an item that will restore some of your sync rate. There is an armor system here. I was able to find 2 different sets throughout this demo. You've got outfit pieces and headgear. The level design is something that I do have to comment on here. Now, the demo takes place in a sewer-themed level known as Sewer Town. I think that the visuals are nice. There's that gloomy, dark, drab aesthetic going on, but from what I've seen from the demo, a lot of the environments throughout AI Limit seem very drab and gloomy. And I want to go as far as to say possibly just a little bit uninspired. So far from what I've seen, the areas don't seem all that interesting. Now, obviously, we've only seen a very small part of AI Limit from the one full trailer that we've got so far that came out at the beginning of the year, and from what we're seeing here in this demo. I do hope that the level design gets a little bit more interesting. I think the actual way that the levels are constructed is good. It's the classic Souls-like type thing with branching pathways that'll lead you to some, hidden loot or additional enemies. Well, the demo is quite linear. There were a few different branching pathways. Also, there's a bunch of doors that you just can't access, but seemingly in the full version, you will be able to access. So this does tell me that there's going to be a lot to explore in each level that you go to. I understand that this is a world that is in ruins. It's quite similar to Code Vein in that sense. I just hope that the full game does have some more interesting locations. Now, finally, let's talk about the final boss of the demo. Now, by the time that I got to the final boss, I was level 15, and I got my ass slapped 3 ways from Monday. Actually, it's a little bit more than 3. Let's try for like maybe 40 ways from Monday. I feel like that journalist who was trying to play Cuphead and couldn't get past the tutorial. No! Bro! No! Fuck! Shit! What? Oh, what? Bro! Nah. Fuck! Hello! Come on! Fuck me. I've got my fair share of Souls experience. I've platinumed Elden Ring, I've platinumed Bloodborne, I've almost platinumed Sekiro, finished both Nioh and Nioh 2, so this caught me by surprise. I wasn't expecting what I think to be is one of the very first bosses players will come across to be this difficult. I managed to get the first phase down on pat, and it was a lot of fun studying the enemy attack patterns, what direction to dodge when this attack is being pulled off. It was fun. But this last phase, man, where he goes into feral beast mode, oh my god, it kicked my ass. Now, I could have run back through the level and grinded on some enemies to put a few additional stat points into either life or technique to do some more damage, but I wanted to remain at level 15. Like, what's the experience like without grinding? Eventually, I managed to take the boss down using the katana and further studying what attacks in his final phase I could counter. But there are some animations when he's running on all fours and about to attack that are a little bit hard to determine exactly where I should dodge to. I think this is something that will be further fixed in the final version of the game, but this final phase got me, and it got me good. So yes, there is certainly a level of difficulty here, at least at the beginning of the game. On my second playthrough of the demo, I decided to run with the greatsword, and I can tell you absolutely right now that the greatsword is my favorite weapon, which is surprising. I generally don't go for greatsword type weapons. It took me about 6 attempts with the greatsword at level 15 compared to, like, I don't know, 30, 40 attempts or something with the katana my first time around. Overall though, I'm really impressed. This is a solid feeling tight Souls-like. And if I'm being 100% honest, I wasn't expecting that, just because whenever I play a Souls-like game that isn't coming from Software, there's usually an 80% chance of the game having some level of jank that makes it so hard for myself personally to be able to see it through until the end. There are a few things that I want to suggest towards SenseGames. The punchiness of attacks needs to be upped just a little bit more. I'm not talking about the damage of attacks, but I'm more so talking about how it actually feels, the responsiveness of your weapon connecting with the enemy. This is one of the things that I notice in other Souls-like games that don't come from Software, where it just doesn't feel satisfying to actually hit things, and I feel like this is important considering this is what you'll be doing most of the time. This usually comes down to the sound design behind attacks, or the effects that correspond with attacks being connected. Right now, dodging and dashing are bound to 2 different buttons. Dodging is with X, and dashing is either toggled with circle or holding down circle. I think that there should be an option to combine the 2 into 1. This isn't a big deal or anything, but considering that most people that are going to be playing this game will be coming from Software Souls-likes, and that if we are looking at a game like Bloodborne, it combines both dodging and the dashing into the one button by either pressing the button to dodge or holding down that button to then dash. This makes it easier if you're wanting to dodge, then you can proceed to hold down the same button to then dash out of harm's way. And finally, dash heavy attacks. There is no means of being able to dash and then perform a heavy attack with the momentum still there. You can certainly do that with light attacks, but I found it very strange that for some reason there is no dashing with heavy attacks. If you dash and perform a heavy attack, your character will then just instantly stand still and perform the heavy attack. However though, I think what we have here is a promising title. This game has certainly come a long way, and I mean a long way, since 2019. Keep in mind though that this is SenseGames' very first video game, and as a first outing, this is incredibly impressive. I think it's fantastic that PlayStation have given them a chance to create the game that they have envisioned. We should be hearing a little bit more about AI Limit very soon. It is going to be appearing at the China Joy event happening from July 26th through to July 28th. With sending this demo out to the media, it does make me think that SenseGames are gearing up for a full release. However guys, that is all for today. That's my thoughts and opinions on AI Limit. Be sure to leave your thoughts in the comment section down below. Thank you so much for tuning in. Be sure to subscribe to the channel to keep up with everything that's going on here. Check out my other social media platforms, links in the description down below. A big thank you to my wonderful patrons. I appreciate the support. I hope each and every one of you are having a fantastic day, and we'll talk real soon.